Rivers has more or less been my central character and primary persona since about 2006. Lauren 1.0 was completed back in 2008 by Mix Candy Productions. Delivered just before Anthrocon that year, she made her debut and quickly cemented her spot as one of my primary costumes. Once I started wearing her around, I kind of realized that I had outgrown Zigzag, and I just kind of, started wearing her less and less to the point that she eventually just kind of sat in the closet. And I started taking Lauren to more and more cons, and she just started to feel more like the real me, as opposed to Zigzag, who had only ever really been a character. I mean, I always enjoyed playing Zigzag, but Lauren was one of the cases where it really felt right. So once I had identified her as my primary character, she just kind of became the center, more or less, of my universe. And it's really not an exaggeration to say that, both literally, metaphorically, and story-wise. At first, I had a different backstory, which was kind of admittedly based on a universe that was sort of put together a little bit haphazardly. And in 2009, I decided to update Lauren's backstory and all of my characters to fit a more consistent methodology. Each of my characters was assigned to one of 4 concepts I was developing, which would eventually become their home universes. Lauren was assigned to the first concept, which I just had written down the words magic versus technology. So that was the basis for that idea. And with this new backstory and new design, I kind of wanted her to have a new outfit. So I went to Foxdye to commission a piece of art, and clothing design is not my strong suit. I'm not really a fashion designer, and I have a hard time, describing what I want her to wear. So I just asked him for something cool, and he ended up coming back with this picture, which just kind of clicked to me. I mean, Foxdye is one of those people that I usually just give him a general idea, and he comes back with something that's way better than I would have ever come up with on my own. So the design ended up fitting so well that I ended up basing almost all of the rest of their outfits on it. It kind of just became the template that the Talwyn design language was based off of. A couple of years ago, after having had the fursuit version for a good long while, I considered an update to Lauren's costume, but rather than just getting a fursuit 2.0, I decided that it might be better if I got a lighter version of Lauren. This would be a thinner material with more freedom of movement, it would be easier to transport, and also it would give me an opportunity to get Lauren's canon uniform. I already knew who to go to because I had an eye on this particular maker for a while. I know they made a lot of fursuits, but what particularly told me that they would work well for this is that they have a lot of non-fursuit costume designs. They do a lot of cosplays, and I never had a chance to work with them, so it seemed like the logical choice was Comic Crazy Studios, run by Temperance. So, I knew her pretty well already, so I approached her about the idea, and she seemed excited to work on them, and so we put that and another concept, which later became Lexi, into the pipeline. The suit ended up making its debut at Midwest Fur Fest 2017, and every now and then it's needed a few minor repairs. I had to send it back a couple of times for tweaks, and I have a sewing kit that I have just in case I should run into any problems. Generally speaking, I've been fortunate enough that the few times I've had a costume emergency that I've had somebody nearby to be able to fix it, and generally speaking, I treat my costumes with kid gloves. I'm very careful with them. But stuff happens, and generally speaking, they're pretty durable, because I don't do crazy things with my suits. But insofar as putting the suit together, of course, you always start with the Under Armour, which is the base layer, because anyone who's been costuming for any number of time knows that if you want to keep it nice, and not just that, but also to make sure that your stuff lasts as long as possible, it's good to have a layer underneath that will absorb the sweat that you can wash pretty much every time you wear the costume or after every convention or something, just so that the suit itself doesn't need direct washing as much. It's especially important if you have suits with like airbrushing or delicate components. Sometimes it's not an option to wash them, so you may only get like surface cleanings, but either way, the more you take care of your costumes, the longer they'll last and the happier we'll all be. So the the first layer of the actual suit is just a plain old stretchy undersuit with sewn on stripes. I kind of thought that would be a better way to go than anything like airbrushed or whatnot, especially with the light material, because it just seemed like the most practical exercise. So the suits are sewn on, so they're all fabric pieces in position, and I had the toes being black to represent the hooves, and of course the fingertips for the same reason. And when she originally did the design, Comic Crazy didn't factor in a tail hole in the outfit, so she had to add a snap closure to the base of Lauren's uniform just so that you could put the tail on the outside, or if she goes around naked, which I almost never do in costume for one reason or another, you can attach it to either the suit itself or the outfit. And the next thing that goes on after you have the zebra skin is, I guess, the bodysuit, which composes the bulk of the outfit's mass. It's a single piece which consists of both the shorts and skirt combination and the black underlayer for the top half of the body. And like a lot of my costumes, it goes on in stages. It has a zipper in the back that you just kind of step into and then just sort of shimmy into place. And once you get your arms through the holes, you just zip up the back. And there's a couple of little, I forget what they call them, but there's those little things that you stick into the holes, little hooks that go into these eyelets, I guess. And those usually don't stay into place very long, but I always put them there in the first place when I get the costume on, just for safety's sake or whatever. And the next thing that happens is that I'll slide the shirt piece on, which by this time it starts to resemble its completed look. It's easier to get on than it is to take off because it really doesn't stretch much, and it's a lot easier to slip it on because the holes and gravity kind of work with you. Since I'm less flexible than I used to be, usually I need help to get it off. I think I was able to do it once. Of course, again, I have to be very careful during the process, but it's simplest if I can just stick my arm straight up in the air and just have somebody sort of guide it off me, just because it doesn't have a whole lot of margin for error. The leg pieces come next. They slip over the feet, and they kind of have to be guided on, a little bit at a time, because they're pretty much form-fitting. I mean, there's not a whole lot of extra space, so I just kind of slip them on, sort of like you're putting on socks, and then just kind of massage them up until they get into the right position. And once that's done, the last thing I have is I have a set of black undergloves that I wear, pretty much the same reason why you wear Under Armour or the balaclava, just to keep the suit clean. So I put those on first, and then the last stage is the gloves themselves. And even though Lauren's Talwyn gloves are separate, the fingerless gloves, I usually leave those on the hands just because I don't want to have to be taking them on and off all the time every time I wear the outfit, because 90% of the time I wear the full Talwyn uniform. And even when I took it to BronyCon this past August, I ended up, wearing a casual outfit because I didn't feel like taking the robes this time, honestly. But I still kept the gloves, and they look fine. They blended in pretty well to it. And the last stage of putting on Talwyn Lauren is the fursuit head, which is the same as 1.0. So that's just, just slip it on, and once that's in place, we have Talwyn Lauren. Thanks for watching, and if you liked it, click the subscribe button and leave a comment below. You can also find me on Twitter and a few other places on the web, or support me via Patreon or Ko-fi. Zebra hugs!